Добрый день, дорогие друзья!
Greetings, dear friends. Hello, Diana.
Hello.
В наше время
Nowadays,
люди все
people
чаще и чаще
are more and more often
находятся в поиске
in search of
уверенности, потому
in search of
что,
confidence,
как
because,
выяснилось,
as
ее
it
не
turns out,
хватает.
we lack it.
Ее не хватает в обычных
We lack
делах,
it in basic
ее не
things.
хватает в
We
тех
lack it
делах,
in those
которые
things
мы
that we
уделяем какой-то
endow with some
сверхзначимости.
super
Да ее
importance.
вообще просто нету в
Actually, it's
жизни.
absent in
Когда
life at
человек
all.
для себя
When a person
решает что-то
decides to
предпринять
undertake
или
something
совершить нужное
or
ему
to do something
и
necessary for
полезное для всех,
himself or
то
useful for
вдруг
others,
почему-то
then
эта
suddenly,
уверенность куда-то пропадает. А
for
порой
some
она
reason,
даже и
this
не
confidence
появляется.
disappears
И
somewhere.
вот в этих
And in some cases, it doesn't even
постоянных
appear at all.
поисках, да,
And
в
so, in this
стремлении
constant
все-таки ее
search, in this
обрести,
effort to find
люди
it, of
обращаются
course, people turn to
к естествознанию
psychology
и к психологии, и к
and
другим
to other
направлениям,
approaches,
которые сегодня
which
на
in
самом
fact
деле
are
изобилуют наш
in abundance
современный
in our
мир.
modern world today.
И вот вопрос, с
And
которого
so,
хотелось бы начать нашу
here's the question
сегодняшнюю
I'd like to
беседу на
start
эту
our
тему,
today's conversation
звучит
with.
следующим образом: а на
It sounds as
что,
follows.
да,
What
предлагать
do
людям
they
сегодня
suggest people should be
ориентироваться
guided
для того,
by
чтобы вот эту
today
самую
in order to
уверенность
build this
обрести?
very confidence?
Well, Sasha, I don't even know how many times in my life I've heard this question. How to be confident in myself? How do I feel this confidence in myself? How many times I've asked myself this question? And this topic could be actually closed right now with a single question. To be confident in yourself is to be confident in whom? And so, until we figure that out, there is no point in moving on. And if people had that interest, if they give it some thought and realized that they have to start figuring out this topic for themselves with that question, and if they turn to the definition offered by psychology today and tried to apply this definition to themselves, who am I? And then answered honestly, I don't understand. I don't understand. I really don't understand. I haven't understood it for years. Who am I when I read these definitions? And other people don't understand as well. So then science would definitely have to look for the right answer to the question, who am I? But people did not ask that question. And the question is, and it is really very much in everyone's mind without exception. So let us try to deal with it. And they start to deal with this question in the way you just voiced. What do they suggest people rely on in order to feel self-confidence? First of all, to rely on some external guidelines, having some material goods, and not material goods, but rather money in the first place, because having money allows a person to buy, for example, a nice, comfortable house, car, beautiful, expensive clothes, delicious food, well, everything that gives stability and confidence. But most importantly, it gives an image of a successful person. And this cover is much more important, because a person may actually have a house, a car, clothes, and food, which is enough to meet human needs, but compared to a certain standard of success, how it may be, how it is with others. Well, when a person begins to compare, then the degree of his confidence decreases. And why is that so? How do we know that something is wrong? Because there are these thoughts in our head. Well, yes, you are good, but look at your classmate groupmate. You were way better at all subjects at the university. And now look at what he has today, what house he lives in, and what house he lived in. Family and friends start to say, what you were, you had such prospects open to you. And what do you have, in fact? And then, a person has this caustic and unpleasant thought, what's wrong with me? What's wrong? And it just comes and sounding in one's head more and more often, and it doesn't make for one self-confidence at all.
Look, you know what I'd like to clarify right now? So, what are we getting at?
наличие денег, да,
if you have money,
да, приравнивается
it
к тому,
equates
что ты
to
становишься уверенным в
becoming
себе
a
человеком.
self-confident
То есть
person.
наличие там
That is,
определенного
if you have a
количества
certain amount of
материальных
wealth
благ,
or material
они
goods, they
автоматически, да, они
automatically
автоматически
allow a person
позволяют человеку
to consider themselves
считать
confident
себя, да, там, уверенным, да, или
or
самым уверенным
self-confident, and
и
so
так
on.
далее. Правильно я понял?
Did I get that right?
Of course. Sasha, first of all, the question of money in the consumer society covers the question of a person's basic needs. Well, imagine how a person could feel not even confident but simply secure if he has nowhere to live and nothing to eat. Of course, there is fear added to it, and a very strong fear. But there are many people in our world, thank God, who have a house and a car and even more than one house and more than one car. Some even have planes and helicopters. But I say again, the matter of self-confidence concerns absolutely everyone. We are going to look into that now. Look, the next guide that people in today's consumer society choose is to have a profession. Not even a profession, but to have a job. Well, and it kind of starts a new game here. Is the profession prestigious or is it not prestigious? And again, what is the prestigiousness of a profession in consumer society? It's in the ability to acquire some material goods, isn't that right? And in the ability to have power, the ability to influence other people. This is what defines the prestigiousness of a profession. And given how much time people spend at work today, after all, in the consumer society, people spend most of their time at work. Work is my second life has already become a saying. And here, of course, being successful in a professional job might have taken the issue of self-confidence off the table. If I'm successful at work, I have it, it provides for my needs, I should feel confident, I suppose. But the issue remains pertinent. In the consumer society, any moment, anyone with any level of income can become a beggar.
Ты знаешь, вот это вот
You know, that kind of
уверенность, она иллюзорна.
confidence, it's illusory.
Что,
Why?
то
Because
есть наличие
having
материальной составляющей,
material component,
да,
material goods,
финансовой стабильности,
financial
назовем это
stability,
так,
let's name it too, well, as they call it nowadays,
наличие
having a
профессии и
profession and a
работы,
job
ты ходишь постоянно,
where you go all
они
the
действительно
time,
дают тебе
they
ложную
do really
уверенность в
give you a
завтрашнем
false
дне.
confidence in
И
tomorrow. And
уже сегодня
many people around the
по
world
миру
have
очень много
already
людей
realized
это
this.
поняли, что в
That
завтрашнем дне
no one
никто
can be
не может быть
confident in
уверен,
tomorrow,
независимо, где ты
no matter where
работаешь,
you work,
независимо, какой
no matter
ты
how many cars you have,
независимо,
no
какое
matter how
количество
many
денег,
houses you
в какой бы
have,
ты стране ни
no matter what
находился,
country you're in,
что-то
things
да произойдет.
will happen.
Если, как говорится, не
If it's not our
наши политические
political
лидеры,
leaders who, as they say, make another economic crisis
кризис,
or start
или же,
creating
там,
famine
искусственно
artificially,
создать голод, все, что мы сегодня
I mean, everything that we see today, then pardon me, the
он тебя
climate
догонит и
will
достанет.
come after you and it will get you. Wherever you are, wherever house you are sitting in, wherever vault you are hiding in, or whichever helicopter you use to fly wherever, it's gotta get you. That is why, in this way, people internally, they do realize that it is all illusory. That's probably why they rush to the experts in order to give me that confidence. Where do I get it? Where do I find it? Money doesn't give me that.
Yes, living in a certain country does not give me that. My status does not give me that. You're right to say that a lot of people have already found this out for themselves nowadays. And so, look, where are we getting to now? We are back to the question I started with. To be confident in yourself is to be confident in whom? Because everything we've named, a doctor, lawyer, an accountant, a construction worker, a cook, these are just social roles. The same as I'm a mother, wife, a girlfriend, a daughter, a customer. They are all social roles. And in each of these roles, a person tries to feel confident. How does he do it? So what should one be guided by? If I get approval, if the people around me support me. Now, that's the guideline that psychologists often advise. By the way, if you want to feel confident, surround yourself with people who approve and support you.
Создайте себе группу поддержки.
Start yourself a support group, right?
Right, but can we trust such a benchmark? Can you be confident that tomorrow or in an hour you will be supported even by your closest ones?
Если у них будет плохое настроение,
If they're in a bad mood, they will hardly happen.
That is it. It is just a bad mood, and if not very favorable circumstances will help, that is it. That is, all those benchmarks are very shaky.
слушай, но ведь
Listen,
то, о чем
so
ты сейчас
what you're saying right now,
мне понятен этот главный
I mean,
акцент.
I do understand this main emphasis. In whom should we really look this confidence?
Социальные роли.
Listing social roles, when you listed social roles, I remember our discussions and videos with the participation of Igor Mikhailovich Danilov, in which he tells about the image, which for some reason lives our lives instead of us. And even playing these social roles, or when you give up your life voluntarily to this image, for creating this image, for supporting this image of a successful leader, of a loving husband, I don't know,
мужа, или же там какого-то
or a super
еще, не знаю,
professional cook, I don't know.
повара.
The question arises, where does this self-doubt, the fear of expressing a real feeling and the fear of being yourself come from? On the one hand, consciousness says that it wants to be loved, wants to receive recognition from others, while on the other hand, it says that you are bad, you are unworthy of all this. Where does this self-doubt come from? And why is it so difficult for people to manifest their true selves and all the best they have inside?
Let's just analyze the question of what self-doubt means. On the one hand, a person wants to get something from someone, but on the other hand, he has doubts that he's unworthy of this. And I have a simple question. Where's the person's desire to give this good? To be loved, to be respected? Who else should this person be?
Beloved, gain recognition from others.
Be loved, gain recognition, everything to me, me, me. Desires from consciousness. One actor tells you what you want, another actor tells you why you won't get it, because you are unworthy of this. Does at least any of the actors say that you need to respect someone, that you need to love someone? None of them talk about that, right?
It's astonishing that basically everyone, let's say, most people want to be loved by everyone. And there is this value, to receive love from everyone. And it's astonishing that when a value is in the outside world and not actually inside a person, as you say, that he himself should understand that this is what I...
The law of the universe in which we exist divides everything proportionally. Let's have a look. For a better understanding, let's take a politician, any politician, it doesn't matter who. We won't name him. Some people love him, some people hate him. Let's take any performer. Whoever we take, some people adore him, some people hate him. It's the same everywhere. Everything is in a direct proportion. Let's take any subject, whichever we take. One actor in our head is for it, while the other one is against it. We've decided to take up sports. For example, all our life we haven't been doing it, or to go on a diet. One actor says, yes, you should. Also, who does the decision come from? So this actor got a wish to put us on a diet, or that we take up sports. Another one starts arguing. Why do you need to take up sports? Waste your time, energy, and exert yourself. Better lie on the couch, right? All this happens in one's head, and it's all dictatorship. One actor says that you want to be loved by everybody. That is, he gives commands to you as personality. Pay, in order to be loved by everybody. Put your attention into it. Act this way. While the other one belittles you as personality. Thus, people waste their lives on what? On getting love from someone, on gaining recognition from someone, while doing nothing by themselves, right?
Exactly, outside the field of his own action.
Absolutely right. Or maybe, guys, we should do something a bit differently. Learn to love and respect other people. Recognize their merits and probably forget about ourselves a little bit. Meaning, stop listening to these actors. Why would I care what the geese that are flying think of me? For example, here flies a wedge of geese. Whether they think about me or not, whether they love me or not, I couldn't care less, you know? Especially if, excuse me, I'm hunting, and I have a gun, and then I shall think about whether they are tasty or not. That's all. That's the only interest I might have for these geese. Isn't that so?
It is. It's just that this self-doubt stops people. People indeed get stuck, as I said before, at the point of inactivity. How to move forward from that point?
Again, let's sort this out. Self-doubt. Whose doubt? And about what? And who is the self here? A simple question. Are there really people who are self-confident? He is so self-confident, but there's still someone inside him who doubts him. For instance, a professional, a doctor, a surgeon, a brilliant professional. I know many of them. And indeed, before every surgery, he doubts. As well as performers, I know many of them. They are afraid when they go on stage. Isn't it so? Why? Because their actors dictate to them. However, I already know surgeons who take a scalpel calmly because they know what they are doing. Their actors keep quiet and do what is necessary. The same is with the performers who go on stage. They know what they are doing and why they are doing it. Their actors don't throw doubts to them anymore. They do what is necessary. Meanwhile, the person himself, as a personality, is merely someone who is trying to bring benefit to people through his art or his profession, let's say. Is that simpler?
It is, without assessment from surrounding actors, so to speak.
At the same time, they don't expect to be loved, respected, or anything else. They just do their job. While self-doubt will always be present if consciousness is active and uncontrolled, of course.
Yes, and
И вот я вспомнил, что...
And so I remembered that one of the guidelines is, having the experience of certain successful achievements. Let's say you've obtained the same position, or you got a salary of a higher level, and what will you hear from the same support group? Oh, well done, well done. And, you can see that this person is confident. He's set himself a goal, he achieved it, he obtained it. He was successful, but the question that is voiced, is he really confident in himself at that moment? And what does he hear in his head?
Right, this is the most interesting moment. Even when a person, as you say, gets approval and support of people surrounding him, the major arbitrator comes in, a voice in the head, which is 1 second can bring down a torrent of doubts and disapprovals. That is it. And a person starts doubting quite soon. Am I really that good? So what defines our self-confidence? Thoughts? Thoughts in our head, or thoughts in other people's heads, which they voice out as approval or disapproval of what we are doing, right? Whatever we do, whatever we hear, whatever we have, as soon as this disapproval turns on in our head, that's it. Total confusion, huge amount of doubts, and I'm not sure anything any longer. And then again, what stands behind this insecurity? Fear. What kind of thoughts always dominate after all? How will they perceive me? How will they treat me? And this is fear mismatch with image.
Fear of exposure.
Exposure, right. I imagine myself this way, and they might suddenly perceive me in a completely different way, and it will turn out that I was mistaken. Or will everyone see who I really am? Look, just a simple example. A guy looked at a girl, a beautiful girl, and he liked her, and he wants to come up. And meet her, and here comes a thought in the head. And what if she doesn't answer me? What if she doesn't like me? What if she thinks that I'm loveless and will tell me to go to hell? In fact, look at us. So, how do you look today? The last thing, yeah.
Now, as a guy who had to go through all of this, I'm gonna tell about one of the most fantastic thoughts which holds you back. What if all of a sudden she'll get it that I like her? Well, I mean the absurdity of these thoughts. But really, you can express liking to another person, and there's nothing reprehensible in that. There's nothing wrong with that. But our internal inspector, called consciousness, makes something up about that. There's no way that someone got to know about my true intentions, or there's no way that they guessed that I like this person. And what does it turn into? After all, it turns into these manipulative games, but it's not your game, it's the game of those prompters, demons, of the system's representatives in your head and in the other person's head. And then, as they say, what do we get instead of normal, open relationship and productive communication? We simply get the theater of absurdity.
There is one more very important point. After all, this doubt, this voice in the head, immobilizes a person. Look, he was looking at the girl, that guy. He wanted to be liked by her, and at the same time, as they say, God forbid if she suddenly guesses about that. But the most important thing is that the guy did not move. He would remain still, no action will take place. He will not find out whether she would like him or not. And this is the most important point that should be understood. This doubt, this voice in the head, very often immobilizes a person and does not let him take some action, doesn't let him get some experience. Because what? What causes these thoughts? Fear. The fear of what if they won't like me? And the thoughts, what if actually a person who is afraid, a scared person, can never be confident. Therefore, we need to understand that absence of self-confidence is fear. It is fear first and foremost. It is a fear to mismatch the image. And a question arises in me. So, this lack of self-confidence, is it a lack of confidence in yourself, or is it a lack of confidence in the image? And what is this image anyway? It's all about made-up characteristics. Since our childhood, we've been hearing right from our moms, dads, grandmothers, teachers, other people, and most importantly from this commentator in the head, how I must look like, how I must socialize with people, and what kind of education I must get, what must I like, what must I not like, and so this set of made-up characteristics, made-up ones, they could have been different, couldn't they? Other parents have the characteristics, so it's a kind of lottery. But a person accepts these made-up characteristics, and so literally, yeah, that's me. So am I a set of made-up characteristics that rely on the opinions of others and on some external circumstances? Then I have no chance, absolutely no chance of being confident in myself.
Because by accepting these characteristics, he immediately drives himself into the trap of other people's opinions. That is, he becomes a slave.
Of other people's opinions, Sasha, and of opinions that sound in his head. Because if he were free from that trap inside his own self, from that dictator who rules him, then no matter what people say, but the person is free. He knows what he really is and what he needs. But that's the point. The trap is actually inside a person. When this commentator forces, or rather, he suggests reacting in a certain way to what people say. Oh, that's what they think of me? Is that what I am? And here I was hoping, right? And then the tangle starts to unfold. But what is very important to understand, that if we are guided by the thoughts in our heads, and the thoughts in other people's heads are the main guideline for determining self-confidence or self-doubt, then we really have no chance of feeling confident. Why? Because the flow of the thoughts is 90% negative, both towards the person himself and towards other people.
This is interesting. I recall the moment when, well, before you were saying about these characteristics that are imposed on us, they're imposed on us since childhood through other people's opinions, and our consciousness instantly plays along. And it should be understood that consciousness, which every person has, is a part of the system. This is a common egregore, meaning a common director who manipulates and plays with everyone. And it has only one interest: to get as much energy from us as possible, to get as much attention from each person as possible. I recall these situations when, through people who are close to you, your dear ones, your acquaintances, your colleagues, there are certain throws in from the system start to happen, like, oh, you definitely can do it, you'll handle it, and you shouldn't have any trouble with it at all, because well, I know you are, and they start listing what kind of person he is, and what is in the head of this one who everyone is so confident of, and what's going on in his head at the moment? Exactly everything that, like you said. What if I can do it? What if I can't live up to their opinions or to their expectations? What will it be? Turns out I'll disappoint them, but they're of such a good opinion of me. And here we are in this trap that the system has, highlight for us, or draw the line for us through our consciousness and through the consciousness of others, and it invites us to play here. It invites us to spin here, and it seems there's a field for maneuvering, but the rules of this game are not quite fair, and most importantly, the result of this game will not be beneficial for you at all, while it will be very beneficial for the system. So I'm thinking about the question that you voiced at the start of the video of our program. Who do you really need to be confident in? And I realized that without knowing about the dual nature of human being, without understanding how you are arranged, without understanding that there's personality, there's consciousness, this question cannot be answered.
Yes, as well as all other questions that we're trying to figure out. What I was just thinking about, that it's really terrible that both science, psychology, and psychotherapy today direct people to focus on this inner voice in their head. Well, we say he's negative. Yeah, from experience, everyone who observes it, even those who don't observe it, guys, look at how we treat each other, how we perceive ourselves. And then the next question is, what are we guided by? By thoughts in our heads. So if we see a stream of negativity, we don't even have to think for a long time. It is obvious that this stream is mostly negative. But the terrible thing is that we are encouraged to rely on it as a basic hint for what you're supposed to do, what you are not supposed to do, how you should feel, how you should sense. And I would say there is a new video of the participation of Mikhail Danilov's personality, where very important and very good real answer to the question of where these inner voice to.
What is a voice in the head? What causes give rise to it? After all, we know that in medical science doctors say that this is, let's say, schizophrenia, and it is caused by a disorder of some brain functions. Is it always like that?
Well, the question is serious. As a matter of fact, there are 3 causes. The first cause, as you have voiced, is really schizophrenia, my friends. It is due again to the disease itself, which is an organic lesion of the brain. There is also another reason, is an interference of the so-called third forces that's already a category of mysticism. We are already shifting to esotericism and mysticism, and we touch upon an even more mystical third part, which I guess is basically the most frequent one. This is subpersonality. Those are former personalities that live in almost everyone, in huge numbers at times.
Can subpersonalities be attributed to third forces?
No, they cannot be. Again, there is a very serious difference here. Third forces influence a person from outside, whereas subpersonality influences a person from within.
That's interesting.
That is, for understanding, let's put it as follows. If we consider the human structure, a human being is not just a visible part that we observe, but there is also an energy component. You cannot argue with that. Everything living emits energy. There are certain laws, and there have been the Curlian effects, where it was shown that an amputated part is intact at an energy level. So, it is clear there is an energy structure. In this structure there is that which we call the soul, as it is generally accepted. It is what comes on the 8th day from the birth of a human, when a human becomes a human. On this carrier, on this very soul, thanks to which, by the way, our personality is formed, meaning exactly we are formed, while secondary consciousness is formed already as a reflection. As for primary consciousness or animal consciousness, as it is also called, it emerges in the womb, together with all the organs, so to say. It is primitive, and as we repeatedly said, it can develop up to 5 or 6 years old, let's say, according to a person's age. Later on it becomes wiser, accumulates certain skills, but it remains at the level of its development at about this age, approximately as a well-developed primate, not more, meaning it is animal consciousness, so to say. Thus, sometimes there can be a lot of subpersonalities on the soul as a carrier. What is a subpersonality? It's an ordinary person, like you, my friend, or Tatiana or me, like any other person, who didn't gain life, didn't attain life eternal, and transitioned to what is called hell in religions. Yes, this is painful, this is terrible, this is problematic, but the point is not in what this subpersonality feels. Subpersonality always strives to, well, again, it has to be understood. What does a human feel while being a subpersonality? For this understanding, I'll put it simply. Imagine that you, my friend, have simply lain down and relaxed to such an extent that you do not feel your body at all. This is exactly the state of subpersonality. In other words, you will remain just the way you are, but there comes a tremendous understanding and knowledge of that world which we do not perceive, which in our everyday life we regard as fantasy, fiction, something otherworldly, religion, magic, and everything else, meaning all mysticism. So, after a person leaves his perishable body, this entire mysticism becomes a reality, and the person faces a very harsh reality. He understands that he has wasted time and will never see life. Not just life, but even peace.
But what can I say? Judging from my professional experience, for many years in a psychiatric hospital, every day I would hear stories from all the patients about how they lived under the guidance of this very inner voice, the voice they hear in their head. I don't know if I should add anything to that. Every day for years in a mental hospital, I saw the result of this obedience, of this listening, submission to this voice. That's one of the ways. But in any case, one must understand that this voice in one's head can only lead a person to death, only to destruction and nowhere else.
Regarding being guided by the inner voice, there is quite popular technique. A few years ago, well, it had already made its way even to our country, and actually it was quite popular. I know a lot of people who were in the search of self-confidence. And what is behind that? Behind that, there's a need to understand the meaning of life, to understand the purpose for which you've came here. And and there's this new technique that differentiates people into types, which helps people according to that type determine and understand how they should function in this world. And there's this wonderful guideline there. When you've talked about this inner voice thing, I recalled it when somebody is making an offer to you about, well, anything else, moving to another country, getting married, having kids, buying a car or a house, investing money into cryptocurrency, and so on. There's the guideline inside of you with a voice, which is really amazing, right? With the sound, it will let you know whether to do it or not. So you're standing at some kind of crossroads, and you need to make a decision in your life. And when you hear this offer or this proposal, either another person voices it to you or it sounds in your head, at that moment you must be extremely attentive. Why? Because you have to hear this first reaction of your inner prompter, which will tell you, and then we act this way, or it will tell you, nah, and then we don't act that way. Everything is supposed to be easy, right? So devote a little time to, hearing, first of all, these moo sounds, can't call them in any other way, and everything in your life will be fine, and all your decisions will be right, and you will become a successful person, and you will acquire happiness, and so on and so forth. And I'll tell you this, that people around me at that time, they were just, thrilled with excitement about this, saying that how easy it all is, finally, it's a fantastic tool that gives you, all benefits of this world, and most importantly, the peace of mind, the satisfaction of knowing what you need to do in this life, what you should follow. And I was very cautious about that. I think you can why, because already at that point, knowing what consciousness is within each one of us, knowing how it works, I knew perfectly well that it would not have any difficulty or a problem to move at the right and beneficial for the system time, to do this thing. Well, just, mumble and guide a person where? To the place according to the director's play, where he belongs, where according to the director's play, he will give much more life energy than he could otherwise. So, in this regard, these trendy methods, techniques appearing from nowhere and promising super efficiency. So what do? They further enslave people. They further lead them to a point where it will be much more difficult for them to get out of. And based on that, I think it would be quite useful for our viewers and for us to understand the whole mechanism of how decisions are made, who in us makes these decisions, who doesn't want us to make these decisions, and who is really moving and who is shouting loudly so that you would give up something or do something.
Yes, when I hear about these techniques, I have an idea that it would be great if at least someone from the audience thought about it and asked a question. Dear lecturer, tell me, who is this voice addressing? Who is it actually talking to? Who is it giving this answer to? You see, what strikes me is that these questions do not even arise, because that would be it. That would be the end of the whole technique. But the worst part is that people do not really understand. They are not told by those who organize these training sessions and seminars what dangers a person is exposed to when he begins to activate this program. After all, what do they teach people? To invest their attention into programs of consciousness. They do not tell at these lectures and seminars that at a certain moment, unexpected moment for every person, this voice becomes so dictative. That's what in psychiatry is called imperative voices. And when people describe it like this voice just takes possession of me, I can no longer disobey it. This voice demands that a person jump off a balcony or kill someone or do some other terrible thing. They do not tell you about it, but the activation of all these programs happens in a similar way that has to be understood. And so the question that is very closely related to the question of self-confidence, to the topic of self-confidence, is the question, am I doing it right or wrong? But again, if we continue to keep the thoughts in our head as a guidance, or thoughts in other people's heads, or some external circumstances, then a person will simply drown in doubts. But it's highly important to understand that any action begins with a decision. And then, how do I know that I'm making the right decision? But to know that, you have to understand the process of how the decision is made. After all, what are we guided by? The decision we make is a thought in our head that we eventually agree with. Oh, that's what I have to do. That's what I'm gonna do. But there is a huge flow of thoughts, and humans do not control that flow. The decision is made by the one who chooses which thought to invest their own attention into. And personality is actually the one who controls this process, because attention is an instrument of personality. It is through attention that the energy comes in, which is capable of turning any thought into action. But in order for this process to happen consciously, one should really understand, who am I? Who am I? This personality that controls this process. And it is important to understand the following. As soon as a person puts attention to some image or some thought, the algorithm of action formation is triggered. Image, thought, emotion, reaction in the body, action. In other words, it turns out that every person is given the power capable of implementing any action in this world. Any action. Because everything depends only on what a person puts his attention into. After all, everything that happens in this world, everything that happens in each person's life depends solely on what one has invested their attention into. And when you realize this, you understand what an enormous responsibility each person has. Each of us chooses which action in this world is to be implemented and which is not. And once you understand that, it's just ridiculous to say things like, well, what can I do? I depend on so many circumstances. No, it's the circumstances that depend on us, on the investment of our attention. See how things change.
You know, when a person comes across this information and realizes that indeed he is the architect of his own fortune, with that comes freedom. But with freedom comes responsibility too. Why? Because you need to very clearly understand and distinguish what to invest your attention into. And the same goes for the process of making a decision, for the process of confirming one decision. Because how do we confirm it? By corresponding actions. It is highly important to understand what you're responsible for as personality, as an operator of your human being. After all, personality is actually the operator who controls the body, controls the energy structure, and most importantly, controls consciousness. Because consciousness tells us otherwise, that it is it that controls everything, that it is it that makes decisions, it is it that has the right to change decisions, and so on and so forth. But consciousness will never tell us that it is just a servant. A notorious servant traitor, not very conscientious, but nonetheless. And this, unfortunately, is something you won't hear about in psychology today. You won't hear about it in other approaches, teachings, newfangled approaches, and the like. You can be taught everything you want, how to distribute your energy, where to invest your attention, how to get what you want with the help of some quick and easy tools. But no one will tell you who you actually are and whether it is you who wants all of this. And so when you actually understand who is who in your structure and who is responsible for what, and who prevents you from implementing your decision, that's when you become more responsible and much more selective in where you put your attention to.
Yes, this is a very important point, a point of responsibility, where to invest attention. Look, right now the Creative Society project is being implemented all over the world, and people hear in their minds, what can I do? You can do everything. You just do not know who you are and what an incredible gift you have. What an incredible gift you are endowed with. We were able to implement one of the monstrous projects, the consumer society. It was we who implemented by investing our attention, and this way we support our own death and the death of our children. By investing our attention into that evil, we support wars, violence, slavery, inflation, all of this lawlessness that is going on in society right now. It is us who support it by investing our attention. And now, imagine 8 billion people who can invest their attention into life, into their own lives. After all, that's the most precious thing any of us has. Let us just put our attention to the Creative Society project. Why? Because the foundation of this project is the value of each person's life, each of us, of our children. It is the only project that truly guarantees that human life comes first. It is the only format of society that can truly protect human life. What can be more important than that? Watching soap operas, computer games, news about how many people have died and about some new atrocity. That's what we need to think about. What do we put our attention into? It's impossible to figure out this topic without considering the dual nature of a human. Impossible. Why? Let us sort it out. A person has a spiritual component, the soul and personality. A person has an animal component, the body and consciousness. Each of these components has its own purpose. The goal of personality is to return home, return to the spiritual world, to God's world. It is only possible if there is a fusion of personality with the soul, and then a new spiritual being, an angel, is born. But for this to happen, 90% of human attention must be directed to the soul, because the soul is that very door to the world of God. And if I'm going home, I have to look at the road that leads me home. I have to aspire to that road. That's it. To run along that road, not to look around. If we compare this process, to draw the analogy with the fertilization of the egg, The soul is the egg and personality is the sperm. This process needs energy, and personality has it, and an active position is required, and personality has it. All that remains is to direct one's attention to the implementation of this goal. And now let's see what the goal of consciousness is. And consciousness has the goal to fuse with personality. Consciousness has no energy to implement this goal, and there is another obstacle. Personality has an active position, and for consciousness to implement its goal, it needs to immobilize personality and find energy somewhere. The only energy it can use is the energy that personality controls. And what does consciousness do? It attracts the attention of personality by flooding it with images and thoughts, and this way it draws this vital energy upon itself. Personality, while losing energy, also loses activity. Well, for example, just to make it clear, the person decided to buy a house. He chose it, he has money for it. Welcome, go buy, live, enjoy yourself. But then the thought appears in his head. Maybe I should look for other options. Maybe I should cancel with someone else, go to this agent or another one, and maybe I should make this purchase in a year. And the person begins to be distracted by these thoughts. That's it. And people often spend years choosing this house and never make the purchase.
You know what the most interesting thing is before buying a house? I'm just continuing our analogy. We start buying umbrellas for the garden, which doesn't exist yet, pools, some, additional extensions to the house. We buy some utensils for our future home, and the money that you actually had for the purchase of the house, of course, they start to be spent on completely different things, and thus they postpone at best. They postpone the purchase of the house in time. And it also may happen so, knowing that consciousness is a soulless program that is perpetually unsatiable. You said it right, it doesn't have energy, it takes it from us, it takes it from personality, and being aware of the fact that the energy is there, it will invent new ways how to get it out. And the house might only even happen a year or two and three passes, and that's it. But you'll have an umbrella and the garden furniture and the lawnmower and brooms for the bathhouse somewhere out there in the pantry, in the storage, but you will have neither the bathhouse, nor the garden, nor vegetable garden, nor porch.
No life, Sasha, right? The main thing, no life. Because, people sort of ask, well, how can I not be distracted by thoughts and images? How can I exist in this three-dimensionality? The thing is that in order to exist in the best way, comfortably in this three-dimensionality, it's enough to give consciousness no more than 10% of attention. And a person, indeed, will exist in the best possible way here. When a person decides to buy a house, he goes and buys it. This is exactly the amount of attention that fits into this 10%. But when he begins to listen to the thoughts, doubts, do I need it or not, now or not now, should I buy umbrellas or lawnmowers, that's it. This is where redistribution of energy goes in favor of this dead program. And the life energy of a human goes to it. It means that consciousness is filled with energy to implement its goal.
So it is through bombarding a person as personality with doubts, thoughts, images, which sow doubts and fears in us, consciousness immobilizes us, right?
Yes, doubts are just one of the very powerful tools to immobilize a person. Well, we give that example, but these examples are everywhere. As soon as a person thinks about something, consciousness itself often throws this thought, go and do something. The person at once is attracted to the thought, it seems to be interesting, it seems to be necessary for me. He wanted to go somewhere, do something, buy something. It's kind of necessary. That's it. As soon as the attention shifted to the program consciousness, the stream doubts began. Let's do it another way.
Распространенный пример
A common example
смена работы.
is a job change.
Действительно, многие люди
Well,
с этим
indeed, many people have experienced this.
Хорошо, по объективным
And
причинам
okay,
человек
well,
принимает решение.
for the
Мне нужно
objective reasons, the person makes a decision. I need to change jobs because he may have moved further from his job or from his workplace, or his expenses increased and he needs to earn more in order to meet his needs, to provide for his needs. And what starts there? Okay, I've made a decision. It's time for me to change the job. Basically, what do I have to do next? Well, I need to sit down, think, analyze where you can work, what salary you need, and how you get there, and that's weight all pros and cons of a new place work and compared to an old one, and then start looking for a new job. But as soon as we make this decision, there immediately starts, how would I leave my work team here? Or what if a new job will be worse, a worse place? Or, well, maybe I should, be patient a little, and then somehow they will understand that I'm a valuable employee and they will raise my salary themselves. Or what if I don't like there at all? And what if no one understands me there? And so on and so forth. So what does a person do then? Instead of making action in accordance with this decision, he first of all, he stops, and then he got stuck, like a car in the sand, So he just gets stuck, and consciousness holds on him and starts pressure, and the job he has is no longer a joy for him. Why? Because he can't work properly. He's pressured by those, and he cannot leave for a new job because his consciousness has already packed him with these thoughts like, what if something will be wrong there? And unfortunately, this is how most of the people on our planet live.
And so, picture after picture, thought after thought, a person wastes his life energy on the dead, and he himself becomes dead. Because if a person in his life spends most of his life energy, most of his attention on thoughts and images, then consciousness fulfills its goal, not personality. Consciousness merges with personality, and a subpersonality is formed. And then a person falls into that state, which is called hell. In fact, it does not matter at all what house you live in here in this world. It is much more important in which house you will find yourself after the death of the body. Today, science does not reveal this truth to people, and people do not think about it. But there is a guideline that removes any doubts, and this is God. It is very important to understand with whom you are every moment, with God or with the devil. Is your attention focused on feelings or thoughts? There is only one guideline, good or evil. And between them, there is a very clear boundary, and there are no shades of gray, green, or something else. After all, we all perfectly understand what evil is. To think badly about another person, to hate, scream, make claims, get annoyed, blame, cause guilt or feel guilty yourself, control, demand something. Well, there's such a very long list of those states that unfortunately have become usual to people today. It has become habitual to be in fear and aggression and sadness, in a bad mood. I really liked how in one of the recent videos, Igor Mikhailovich gave us a guide that a bad mood is a sin. Indeed, when a person is in a bad mood, he's always dissatisfied with something. He's dissatisfied with himself, he's dissatisfied with someone, he's dissatisfied with circumstances. And, in my opinion, this is a very, very good indicator. In order to be dissatisfied with something, you need to be constantly in some thoughts that cause this dissatisfaction. Because dissatisfaction is an emotion, and an emotion is a consequence of thoughts. And if a person is immersed in thoughts with his attention, then, as we have just said, his attention is simply wasted. His life energy is wasted on the dead. So I think this is still a very good indicator. If a person is calm inside, if he feels joyous inside, then he is with God. Then he has already made the best decision, the most important decision. And he's already automatically protected from causing any harm or evil to himself or to people. He is already doing the right thing. Indeed, the best person is the one who loves God. The best of people is the last prophet, Prophet Muhammad. In our society today, there are simply wrong guidelines dominate. People are not oriented towards humanity, kindness, sport, doing something useful for others.
We have talked about this before, and in one of the latest videos with Igor Mikhailovich, he talked about this as well. He said it is so important for a person to have a goal in their life. Indeed, we discussed with you today how consciousness works, what its functions are, and what its goal is. It is important for consciousness to form a subpersonality in symbiosis with personality, because then it prolongs its life. But for personality, it is vital to merge with the soul, because then we become a spiritually mature being. We become an angel, as it is said in religions. We come back home, mature, grown up, worthy among the worthy, and gain eternal life. But when a person doesn't know what their goal is, when a person is like a blind kitten, poking its nose in search of its mother in the first days after its birth, then a person can go the wrong way. They can just fall into a pit, or something else may happen. You just don't have the right guideline. But when a person has a clearly defined goal, and thank God for He has given each person the right to choose who to be and with whom to be alive with God or to be dead and with the devil. And that is a choice. It is that choice that every person makes in every moment of his life. And then he proves this choice. He carries it throughout his life. Prove to God that you are a human being and He will believe in you. These are not mere words. This is how anyone who considers themselves human should live. Make a decision according to your goal that you've set for yourself. Then there will be no doubts. Then you won't hesitate. Then you won't have any confusion to do this or that, right or wrong, go here or there, change jobs, I don't know, change your place of residence, get married, buy a car, buy a house, go fishing. What's the difference? We are all in the same conditions. We are all here in this material world, which has its own laws and rules. You should take care of the body. You should control your consciousness. But love, life and love, they have to be earned. You have to earn it and defend it in yourself. And when you finally understand why you came here, what your goal is, and who your greatest enemy is, and why it immobilizes you, and why it casts these doubts at you, then it gets easier for you. it is all clear for you. You see this battlefield, well, conventionally, allegorically, in front of you, and you see this path that God will lead you down. He will take you where you will be safe and sound, but you'll gain the experience you need, you'll get the skill that you need, and most importantly, you will gain life. Why? Because even in this illusory battle, you remain true. You remain true to yourself, to your goal, and you remain true to God. Yet, whatever the goal is, that's what a person is like. If a person has no goal, he doesn't live. He's an aimless creature. Well, the devil sets 1,000 goals for him every day, but a human should live by the only goal. He has only one life and one goal. Which one is up? Which one is up to him to choose? However, after listening to this, like the omnipotence, a person rushes not towards God, he rushes towards Shaitan. This is really so. I'll put it as follows. Such people are slaves, Shaitan slaves, the slaves of the prince of this world.
But in order to reach this goal, it all starts with a decision. The decision to become alive. If we go back to the question, what is the right decision? The most correct and most important decision in a person's life is to become alive. And when a person makes this decision, they acquire a goal. And then everything becomes very simple. Then everything that helps me achieve this goal is the right decision, and everything that prevents it from being achieved is the wrong decision. Everything becomes very simple. And, this whole understanding that really God is the primary guide, it is the guide that brings back to a person understanding himself and gives him confidence in himself, because confidence in yourself is confidence in God. When you start learning to communicate with God, this is understood easily, because in this communication there is no fear, there is no doubt, there is certainly no self-doubt. Why? In order to communicate with God, you have to take your attention completely away from all thoughts. And once you take your attention away from your thoughts, then fears disappear, doubts disappear, and self-doubts disappear. And so, when God stays the primary guideline, then all is well. But if, God forbid, we are distracted from this main guideline, then it is very easy to get confused. And then there arise those questions that we started with today, that we're exploring now, and also many other questions. God must come first, and then everything will be all good for the person. And most importantly, everything will be clear to a person, and he will be absolutely confident in what he's doing. He will understand what he's doing. The most important decision in the life of a person is to become alive. That's it. As soon as a person chooses it, then he already gains life. All that remains is to be true to this decision till the end.
And that is God's greatest generosity towards each and every person.
Yes. Yes. We've said it today that if people realized what an incredible gift each of us has been given, then the question of what we can or what we cannot would not arise at all. We can do everything easily. And the main thing is to understand your responsibility in this choice. And finally, take personal responsibility for your own life. And all people have the chance now.
I liked that we went over some important points today. The important points that can really help people gain confidence in themselves. At the very least, confidence in themselves. And at the most, at the most, I guess,
Confidence in tomorrow.
right, only God knows what a person who comes to him in love can gain. And I have a question for our viewers. Guys, please write in the comments under this video what gives you confidence in yourself. What brings you this confidence? Where do you get it from? I think we'd all be interested in reading it. And of course, we'll also all be very interested in looking into it. Diana, thank you very much. Friends, thank you very much. Thank you for moving forward. Thank you for striving to know the truth and for striving to know yourself. All the best to you.